Imagine this. You're taking the CFP exam and the clock is ticking. A retirement plan suitability case pops up on the screen and you knew it was coming. You drew yourself from the different plans, but now, 4 hours into the exam, those details start blurring. You start second guessing yourself and burning time you can't afford to lose. In this video, I'm going to share with you a decision tree that groups retirement plans into clear categories so you can narrow down the answers quickly, giving you a systematic approach to acing these questions. Now, most candidates I talk to try to memorize every single detail of every single plan type. 12 different flashcards, each with dozen factoids on the back. Come exam day, you're staring at the answer choices, hoping you remembered everything correctly. Here's what works better. Those 12 plans, they aren't random. They follow patterns. Learn the patterns and you can eliminate wrong answers systematically. No more guessing, no more panic. To do this, we're going to think like the CFP professional you're training to be. When a client walks into your office wanting to install a retirement plan, you need to understand 3 things. First, what are they trying to accomplish? Are they trying to maximize their own benefits, reward and retain key employees, or maybe they're trying to help everyone at their company? Second, what can they handle? So how much can they contribute? Can they afford to fund the plan each year, or do they need flexibility? Are they good at, or can they pay someone to handle administrative complexity? And finally, we need to know who we are working with. So how many employees are we trying to benefit? What are their ages and salaries? What kind of tenure and turnover can we expect? These factors will point you to the right plan type. So let's take a look at the decision tree. Now, don't worry, this diagram looks complicated at first, but we're going to walk through it together. You'll notice that each node of the tree is an aspect of what we just talked about: goals, constraints, and employee demographics. At the top of the tree, we focus on constraints. The first split we need to consider is whether the company can sustain mandatory annual contributions or whether they need more flexibility. On the exam, they might use that exact language, or they might mention that the company has strong, steady cash flows, or that it has moderate or maybe even irregular profitability. Same idea. This first split, it's all about splitting between pension plans and profit sharing. Now, if the company can afford to make annual contributions, the next factor to consider is who is going to take on the risk. That could be investment risk, longevity risk, or risk of the company going under. This is how we filter to either DB or DC plans. From there, in both cases, we want to know if age is a factor in plan selection. If the owner is older, chances are you want to recommend a traditional DB or a target benefit plan. If the owner is younger, then the less expensive cash balance or money purchase plan might make more sense. Now, going back up, if our client needs the flexibility to decide which years to fund the retirement plan, we're looking at profit share plans and a few other options. To narrow it down, you might look for either a strong need for vesting, either because there's high employee turnover or the owner wants to only reward long-tenured employees. Alternatively, they may express a strong desire for a super simple plan to install and run. If it's the latter, we've narrowed the choices down to simple IRAs and CFPs. Both of these plans are designed to be simple. The trade-off being they both vest 100% immediately. So how to choose between them? Well, simple IRAs can be installed in businesses with less than 100 employees. They allow for both employer and employee contributions, and the employer must make either a 2% flat contribution or 3% match. And there is no Social Security integration. CFPs, on the other hand, are employer contribution only, but there is no substantial and recurring contribution requirements. They're also allowed to push back eligibility from 21 and 1 to 21 and 3 of the last 5 years of service. CFPs can be integrated with Social Security. Do you see how this process of elimination works? Now let's hop back up the decision tree and follow the final branch in the middle. But before we do that, if you are finding this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. This is not exactly viral Mr. Beast material, so if you've got a friend or a CFP study group, I'd appreciate it if you could share it with them. Thanks. All right, so going back up the tree, what happens if your hypothetical client needs the flexibility of contributions and wants vesting requirements? The next thing to consider is whether they want to contribute cash or stock to the retirement plan. On the exam, they will be explicit about stock or equity in the question, so if there's no mention, default to cash. Here, once again, the age of the owner is going to be a differentiating factor. If you've got an older client who has employees that are meaningfully younger, an age-weighted profit-sharing plan will help them save for their own retirement while minimizing contributions to others. If, on the other hand, there isn't an age gap, but they still want to differentiate how much is contributed to themselves and maybe a small group of long-tenured or management-type employees versus the rank and file, a new comparability plan will do the trick. Now, if instead your client is looking to help all employees, or they're looking for a less burdensome or costly option, a straight profit-sharing plan could be the answer. And if they want employees to be able to contribute, or they only want to contribute on a matching basis, making it a 401k will do that. And voila, that's the decision tree. And as you'll see in a second, walking through the tree is pretty fast. It's a fast process of elimination. Here's an example. George, the owner of Bluth's original frozen banana stand, is 58 and thinking about retirement. There's always money in the banana stand, and George is taking home a cool $500,000. A few employees operate the banana stand, typically teenagers working a minimum wage summer job. George wants to be able to fund a hefty retirement for himself. Forget the teenagers. What plan would you recommend he install? Now, before we even get to the decision tree, I want to highlight a few key facts here. First, George is on the older side. Second, the stand is making steady and hefty profits each year. And lastly, the other employees, they're significantly younger, and in fact, they're teenagers, so they're likely below the 21 and 1. Plus, they're low compensation. Take a second and try this problem on your own. Hit pause. All right, you ready? First off, we can afford to do a pension because the banana stand has strong yearly earnings. Now, we don't know George how he feels about who takes on the investment risk, but we do know that he wants to put away a lot of money, and a DB plan would allow him to do this. We know also that George is much older than his workforce, which leads us to a traditional DB plan. Now, say you were looking at this problem and you got stuck on that investment risk asset. You know that George is older, so you've got it down to either a DB or a target benefit. How do you choose? Well, I would still go with DB because George is 9 years out from retirement, which is plenty long for a target benefit plan to drift off course. Plus, target benefit plans, being DC plans, they have a cap on the annual contribution, while DBs are capped on their payout, so George can divert a lot more money into a DB plan. Now, George Bluth might be a typical food or retail small business owner. Let's take a look at a small professional services firm. Sterling Cooper is a scrappy ad agency. While the firm has had big years, they are no stranger to droughts. Owners Bert and Roger are considering putting in a retirement plan. In addition to thinking about their own retirement, they want to use this benefit to retain their star execs. Less interesting to them is funding retirement for the secretaries, who, after all, will be getting married and having babies soon. So, what plan would you recommend they implement? Pause the video, write down the key facts, and try to answer it yourself. Ready? Well, it's clear that the firm needs the flexibility of profit-sharing plan contributions. We also see that one of the goals is to differentiate between the admin and the secretaries. Now, age is not mentioned, so that rules out age-weighted plans. And while gender is hinted at, you can't set coverage rules based on gender. But rules based on role type, aka secretaries, is permissible. So that would suggest crosstab, aka a new comparability plan. Now, if you thought straight profit sharing or 401k, assuming it had been invented by then, those are options, but I don't think they're the best options. Maybe you were thinking that a match could create the desired differentiation, but we weren't actually given any information about salaries, so we can't assume that the admin are making significantly more than the secretaries. So profit sharing and 401k, they might not result in the skew that Sterling Cooper is looking for. All right, let's look at one more example. Lorelei and Suki are co-owners of the Dragonfly Inn, which they recently purchased and renovated. In year one, the inn broke even and the duo are feeling optimistic, hence the very grown-up impulse to establish a retirement plan. The inn staff is small, consisting of Michelle, the assistant manager, and Tobin, the night manager. They're treated like family. Lorelei, who'd be the Plan administrator doesn't have a head for numbers and is not good at paperwork. What plan would you recommend she consider? Pause the video and come back once you've got your answer. Got it? There are a few big hints here. The business is brand new and has only broken even. Probably should not be doing mandatory contributions. The other is that Lorelei probably is not going to be taking on the huge administrative burden of administering a plan. So both of these point us to this branch of our tree. But do we recommend a SIP or a simple IRA? Well, if this was the exam, we would hope that only one showed up as the possible answer. But for the sake of YouTube, let's say both showed up as choices. This is where small details are going to make the difference. If you remember, simple IRAs have mandatory contributions. It's 2% flat or 3% matching dollar for dollar. SEPs, on the other hand, they have no required cadence for contribution, not even the substantial recurring 3 of 5 years. So for that reason, I'd be less likely to recommend the simple IRA and instead suggest a SEP. All right, now that we've walked through the decision tree a few times, I really want to encourage you to make it your own. Add facts, rearrange branches if your brain processes patterns differently. Yes, I showed you a specific decision tree, and you are more than welcome to adopt it if you want, but more than anything, this is a technique. Because I'm 95% confident you will get more questions right using a decision tree than memorizing every fact about every plan. Which is not to say that you don't need to learn more facts about various retirement plans. Those details may not be important for plan selection, but you will absolutely need to know them for elsewhere in the exam. Which is why I made a 25-minute deep dive going through all the technical details of qualified plans. Go check it out. In the meantime, good luck studying, and I will see you in the next one.